Welcome to Soul 302, Study Session 5, The Hausa of Nigeria. Introduction. The Hausa is one of the major ethnic groups in Nigeria, found on the northern part of Nigeria. It is indeed the largest ethnic group in Nigeria. In discussing Hausa ethnic group, we will explore through their historical background, which will trace the Bayadija legend. From this, we will move to discuss their culture with emphasis on such cultural practices as religion, clothing, and food. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Discuss the historic and origin of the Hausas. Discuss the culture of the Hausa people. Origin and history. The Hausa are a Sahelian people chiefly located in the West African region of northern Nigeria and southeastern Niger. There are also significant numbers found in the regions of Sudan, Cameroon, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Chad, and smaller communities scattered throughout West Africa and on the traditional Hajj route across the Sahara Desert and Sahel. Many Hausa have moved to large near coastal cities in West Africa, such as Lagos, Accra, Kumasi, and Cotonou, as well as to countries such as Libya. However, most Hausa remain in small villages where they grow crops and raise livestock, including cattle. They speak the Hausa language, a member of the Chadic language group, itself a subgroup of the larger Afro-Asiatic language family. Perhaps the best way to trace the origin of the Hausa people is to start from the legend which centered around Bayajida. Bayajida is a character from the mythology of the Hausa people of northern Nigeria and the central figure of the Bayajida legend. The various versions of the legend differ on minor points, but generally agree that he originated in Baghdad, traveled across the Sahara, and arrived in the Kanem-Borno Empire, where he married a local princess. Tensions with her father, the king, forced him to flee, leaving his wife in Adigia. He made his way to Gaya, where he had the local blacksmith forge him a knife. With this knife, Bayajida proceeded to the final point on his journey, the city of Daura, where he slew a serpent that had been terrorizing the townspeople. To show gratitude for his deeds, Magajiwa Daurana, the local queen, married him. He had one child, Bawo, with Daurama, and Bawo's own children are said to have gone on to found the 7 Hausa states. While some Hausa maintain that Bayajida was real, others hold the view that he did not actually exist, but is instead a personification of a group of people from West African history. According to legend, Bayajida was a prince from Baghdad, the son of King Abdullahi, but he was exiled from the city after Queen Zidam, also known as Zigawa, took over the city. Once he left Baghdad, he traveled across Africa with a group of about 300 and arrived in Bornu. Once in Bornu, tales differ as to what caused tension with the local king. According to one story, Bayajida realized his forces were stronger than those of the king, and because of this, he planned to overthrow him. However, the king heard of the plot and after consulting with his advisors, gave Bayajida his daughter Magaram in marriage. Later, when the king attacked and took over several towns, he tricked his new son-in-law into leaving his own men to guard the towns, thereby decreasing the number of men Bayajida had at his disposal. Bayajida realized that he was being tricked when he had only his wife and one slave left during the night. They fled to Gaura Gabas, now known as Adija. While there, Magaram gave birth to Bayajida's first child, Biram. However, according to another version of the story, Bayajida was welcomed into Bornu, married Magaram, and became popular among the people. Because of this, the king envied him and plotted against him. Upon being informed of this by his wife, he fled Canaan Bornu with her. Bayajida left his wife and first child in Adija and continued on to Gaya, where he had the local blacksmith make him a knife. He then came to the town of Daura, located in modern Castilla state, where he entered the house and asked an old woman for water. She informed him that a serpent named Saki guarded the well and that the people were only allowed to draw water once a week. Bayajida set out for the well and beheaded the serpent with the knife the blacksmith had made for him, after which he drank the water, put the head in a bag, and returned to the old woman's house. The next day, the people of Dara gathered at the well, wondering who had killed the snake. Magajia Daurana, the local queen, offered the sovereignty of over half the town to whosoever could prove that he killed the snake. Several men brought snake heads forth, but the heads did not match the body. The old woman, owner of the house Bayajida was staying in, informed the queen that her guest had slain it, after which Daurama summoned Bayajida. Having presented the snake's head, proving to her that he was the one who had slain Saki, he turned down the offer of half the town, instead requesting her hand in marriage. She married him out of gratitude for slaying the serpent. Because it was against the customs of the people of Daura for their queens to marry, Daurama made a compromise with Bayajida and said she would only have sexual intercourse with him once. Because of this, she gave him a concubine named Bagwaria. However, a version of the story claims that Daurama gave him Bagwaria because she wanted to break a queenly vow to remain a virgin, but had to undergo rituals to do so. Bagwaria had a second child for Bayajida, and with his permission, she named him Karabdagari, which means he snatched the town in the Hausa language. This worried Daurama, and when she had a third child of her own, also fathered by Bayajida, she named it Bawo, which means give it back. Throughout his life, Bayajida is said to have fathered 2 children with 3 different women. Bawo fathered 6 of his own sons, whose names were Daura, Gobi, Kano, Castina, Rano, and Zaria, also known as Zazao. Today, with Biram, son of Magaram, these 7 went on to rule the 7 legitimate Hausa states. The Hausa Bawa version of the tale leave Bawo and Magaram out entirely, with Biram, Daura, Gobi, Kano, Kastina, Rano, and Zaria being the sons of Bayagida and Daurama. Karabdagari's descendants meanwhile founded the 7 illegitimate Hausa states, the Banza Bawai. There is a variety of views on the Bayagida story, with differing opinions on the meaning and historicity of the tale. While some also maintain that their legend forefather existed and contemporary royal trace their lineage to and draw their authority from him, others disagree with this literal interpretation and claim that Bayagida never actually existed. One such view is that the story of the marriage of Bayagida and Daurama symbolizes the merger of Arab and Baja tribes in North and West Africa. W.K.R. Hallam, meanwhile, argues that Bayagida represents a folk personification of the supporters of Abu Yazid, who fled southwards from North Africa after Yazid's defeat by and death at the hands of the Fatimids. Dirk Lange, a German professor, contends that the story parallels the biblical story of Abraham, Sarah, and Agar. He compared Abraham to Bayagida, while also noting the similarity between and Abraham's name, Sarah to Magaram, and Agar to Bagwaria, and says that the Israelites are cognate to the Hausa Bakwa, while Arabs correlate with Banza Bakwa. In his 1989 book, An Imperial Twilight, Gawai Bell suggests that the marriage of Bayagida and Daurana signals a change from a matriarchal to a patriarchal system. A history of African societies to 1870 suggests that Bayagida's stay in Bornu prior to arriving in Hausa land is perhaps a folk memory of origins on the Bornu borderland, or a reflection of Bornu political and cultural dominance. Between 500 CE and 700 CE, Hausa people who had been slowly moving west from Nubia and mixing in with the local northern and central Nigerian population established a number of strong states in what is now northern and central Nigeria and eastern Niger. With the decline of the Nok and Sokoto, who had previously controlled central and northern Nigeria between 800 BCE and 200 CE, the Hausa were able to emerge as a new power in the region. Closely linked with the Kanuri people of Kanem Bornu, the Hausa aristocracy adopted Islam in the 11th century. By the 12th century CE, the Hausa were becoming one of Africa's major powers. The architecture of the Hausa is perhaps one of the least known but most beautiful of the medieval age. Many of their early mosques and palaces are bright and colorful and often include intricate engravings or elaborate symbols designed into facade. By 1500 CC, the Hausa utilized a modified Arabic script known as Ajami to record their own language. The Hausa compiled several written stories, the most popular being the Kano Chronicle. In 1810, the Fulani, another Islamic African ethnic group that spanned across West Africa, invaded the Hausa state. Their cultural similarities, however, allow for significant integration between the two groups, who in modern times are often described as Hausa Fulani rather than as individuated groups, and many Fulanis in the region do not distinguish themselves from the Hausa. The Hausa remain prominent in Niger and northern Nigeria. Their impact in Nigeria is paramount, as the Hausa Fulani amalgamation has controlled Nigeria's politics for much of its independent history. They remain one of the largest and most historically grounded civilizations in West Africa. The language of Hausa has more native speakers than any other language in sub-Saharan Africa, with an estimated 22 million native speakers plus additional 17 million second language speakers. The main Hausa speaking area in northern Nigeria and Niger, but Hausa is also widely spoken in northern Ghana and northern Cameroon, and there are large Hausa community in every major West African city. Most Hausa speakers are Muslims, and Hausa is often a lingua franca among Muslims in non-Hausa areas. There is a large and growing printed literature in Hausa, which include novels, poetry, plays, instructions in Islamic practice, books on development issues, newspaper, news magazines, and even technical academic work. Radio and television broadcasting in Hausa is ubiquitous in northern Nigeria and Niger, and radio stations in Ghana and Cameroon have regular Hausa broadcasts, as do international broadcasters such as the BBC, the VOA, Deutsche Welle, Radio Moscow, Radio Beijing, and others. Hausa is used as a language of instruction at the elementary level in schools in northern Nigeria, and Hausa is available as course of study in northern Nigerian universities. In terms of sheer numbers, Hausa does rank as one of the world's major languages, and its widespread use in a number of countries of West Africa makes it probably the single most useful language known in that region. Hausa's rich poetic prose and musical literature, more and more of which is now available in print and in audio and video recordings, makes it a rewarding area of study for those who reach an advanced level. Aside from the inherent interest of Hausa language and its literature, the study of Hausa provides perhaps the most informative entry into the world of Islamic West Africa. Throughout West Africa, there is a strong connection between Hausa and Islam. The influence of Hausa language on the languages of many non-Hausa people in West Africa is readily apparent. Likewise, many Hausa cultural practices, including such overt feature as dress and food, are shared by other Islamic communities because of the dominant position which Hausa language and culture have long held. The study of Hausa provides crucial background for other areas such as West African history, politics, gender studies, commerce, and the arts, culture. Kano in Nigeria is considered the center of Hausa trade and culture. In terms of cultural relations to other peoples of West Africa, the Hausa are culturally and historically close to the Fulani, Songhai, Mande, and Tuareg, as well as other Afro-Asiatic and Nino-Saharan groups further east in Chad and Sudan. Islamic Sharia's law is loosely the law of the land and is understood by any full-time practitioner of Islam known in Hausa as Malam religion. The Hausa people have an ancient culture that had an extensive coverage area and have long ties to the Arabs and the Islamized people in West Africa, such as the Mendi, the Fulani, and even the Wolof of Senegambia, through extended long-distance trade. Islam has been present in Hausa land since 14th century, but it was largely restricted to the region's rulers and their courts. Rural areas generally retain their animist beliefs, and their urban leaders thus drew on both Islamic and African tradition to legitimize their rule. Muslim scholars of the early 19th century disapproved of the hybrid religion practice in royal courts, and a design for reform was a major move behind the formation of the Sokoto Caliphate. It was after the formation of this state that Islam became firmly entrenched in rural areas. The Hausa people have been an important factor for the spread of Islam in West Africa. Magwazawa, the animist religion, was practiced extensively before Islam. In the more remote areas of Hausa, Maguzawa has remained fully intact, but as one gets closer to more urban areas, it almost totally disappears. It often includes the sacrifice of animals for personal ends. It is thought as illegitimate to practice Maguzawa magic for harm. What remains in more populous area is a cult of spirit possession known as Bori, which still holds the old religious elements of animism and magic. Clothing. Hausa people have a very restrictive dressing code due to the fact of religious belief. The men are easily recognizable because their elaborate dress, which is a large flowing gown known as Gere and Babariga. These large flowing gowns usually feature some elaborate carves such as ula. The females can be identified by their dressing codes, in which they wear wrap-round robe made with colorful clothes with a matching blouse, hair tie, and food. The most common food that the Hausa people prepare consists of grains such as sorghum, millet, or rice and maize, which are grounded into flour for a variety of different kinds of food. The food is popularly known as tuwo in Hausa language. Usually breakfast consists of cakes made from grounded beans, which are then fried into what is known as kosai or wheat flour, soaked for a day, then fried into what is known as kosai or wheat flour, soaked for a day, then fried and served with sugar known as funkanso. Both of these cakes can be served with porridge and sugar known as cocoa. Lunch or dinner are usually served as heavy porridge with soup and stew known as tuwo damiwa. The soup and stew are usually prepared with ground or chopped tomato, onion, and local pepper sauce or dadawa. While preparing the soup, most of the times spice and other vegetables such as spinach, pumpkin, or okra are added to the soup. The stew is prepared with meat, which ranges from goat to cow meat, with the exclusion of pork due to Islamic religious restrictions. Beans, peanut, and milk are also served as complementary protein diets for the Hausa people. Study session summary. In this study session, we discuss the Hausa as one of the major ethnic groups in Nigeria found in the northern part of the country. We noted that it is the largest ethnic group in Nigeria. In discussing Hausa ethnic group, we explore through their historical background, which we trace down to the Bayajida legend. We also discuss the culture of the Hausa with emphasis on cultural practices such as religion, clothing, and food. This is the end of study session 5. Thanks for listening.